is Benedikt, and today I will be talking about a crucial and sometimes controversial topic in the Czech Republic. It's church restitutions. So this presentation will guide you through the historical background, legal framework, implementation process, and the social political implication of church restitution in the Czech Republic. So, church restitution refers to the process of rectifying the historical injustice caused by the communist regime, so specifically by returning properties that were confiscated from churches after the 1948 communist coup in Czechoslovakia. These include lands, buildings, and other assets that had significant cultural and economic value. This is not just about material compensation, it is also about rebuilding to relationship between the state and religious institutions. During the communist era, churches became finally dependent on the state, but restitutions aimed to restore their independence. The return of church property has implication beyond the religious realm. It affects the entire Czech society, financially, politically, and culturally. This restitution also challenge how the state and churches coexist and collaborate. To understand why this process began, we need to explore the historical background leading to the confiscation of church property. After the communist takeover in 1948, churches lost massive amount of property, forests, agricultural lands, and other valuable assets that helped the church finance its activities. The state took control of these properties under the guise of nationalism, arguing that the wealth was too concentrated in the hands of the church. So churches were not only stripped of their property, but also their financial autonomy. They became entirely dependent on the state support, which was both financially limiting and a way for the communist government to exercise control over religious organizations. Essentially, the churches has had to negotiate with a regime that was openly hostile to religion. So after the Velvet Revolution and fall of communism in 1989, the Czech Republic began its transition back to democracy. With this change came discussion about how to rectify the injustice of the communist regime. Church restitution was a minor topic of debate because it involved a significant amount of lands and assets, and the political climate was ripe for addressing these historical wrongs. However, addressing these historical wrongs was not just a political statement, it required the creation of legal framework. Let's move on to how this was structured legally. So, in 2012, the Czech Prime Minister, Petr Nečas, and his government passed law no 428 2000 call, which laid out the legal framework for property restitution. This law had two key components: the return of confiscated property in its original form wherever possible, and financial compensation for properties that could not be returned. The law aimed to address two things: restoring church property and setting financial compensation. It allowed churches to regain control over forest, land, and buildings that could not be returned, while also setting up a compensation scheme for properties that the state purpose. For properties that could not be returned, the law stipulated financial compensation. The total amount of this compensation was set up at around 59 billion Czech crowns, payable installments over 30 years. Importantly, these payments are adjusted for inflation, which has become a minor point of contention in Czech politics now, because today we have in Czech Republic inflation about 20%. Now that we covered two legal framework, let's discuss how the restitution process was practically implemented. The first phase of restitution involved returning property that could be physically restored to the churches. This included land, forest, and buildings such as monasteries. However, the return process was from straightforward. Many properties has been repurposed for the state, sold, or transferred, leading to legal disputes. For properties that could not be returned physically, financial compensation was the solution. This compensation is paid over a 30-year period and totals approximately 59 billion Czech crowns, as mentioned earlier. These payments are periodically adjusted for inflation, which ensures that churches are compensated fairly given the changing economic condition. Beyond returning property and providing compensation, the state also provides transitional financial support to the churches. This support was designed to last 17 years, with the amount decreasing by 5% each year until 2030, at which point churches are expected to be financially self-sufficient. This gradual reduction allows the churches to transition from state dependence to self-financing. So, in 2013, the law officially came into effect, and churches began filing claims for the return of their property with the relevant state authorities. The process involved a number of legal and court disputes over specific properties, which led to delays in some cases. Financial compensation are being paid out gradually and are regularly adjusted for inflation. This ensures that churches do not lose on the real value of the compensation due to inflationary change over time. So, inflation clause. This is one key aspect of the financial compensation, which ensures that compensation are adjusted annually according for inflation. This clause guarantees that churches receive payments that reflect the current value of money, preventing the erosion of compensation amount over time. This clause has been a point of contention in public and political debate, especially in time of high inflation. Critics argue that it places additional pressure on the state's finances, while supporters believe it's necessary to provide for compensation. Not everyone in Czech society agrees with scope and scale of church restitution. One of the most common criticism is that the compensation is too high, with some viewing it is a financial burden on the state. Critics also question the transparency of the restitution process, arguing that has been complicated by political interference and legal battles. On the other hand, proponents argue that restitution are a fair way to address historical wrongs committed by the communist regime. They see it's a necessary step in rebuilding the relationship between the state and the religious societies. Furthermore, the supporters emphasize that by 2030, churches will become financially independent, which could reduce the state's long-term financial obligation. Restitution have reshaped the way churches operate within Czech society. Once dependent on the state, churches now more financial freedom to manage their activities. The returns also have cultural and social implication as churches regain properties of historical and cultural significance. In 2013, the Constitutional Court ruled on the Constitutional of Law No. 428 2012 call, despite attempts to annul it. The court upheld the law confirming the validity of the restitution process. Thousands of property items were returned to churches, many of which held significant historical and cultural value. However, many of these claims led to long legal disputes, as the ownership of certain properties was contested. The returned properties have not only been used for spiritual purpose, but also for economic and charitable activities, which have helped the churches to strengthen their position in Czech society. Something about taxation of church restitution. In recent years, political debates emerge over whether church restitution should be taxed. In 2018, political parties in the Czech Republic, like Communist Party and parts of the ANO movement, proposed taxing the financial compensation paid to churches, arguing that it was standard income and should be treated as such. This led to a heated debate. In 2019, a law was passed that introduced a tax on this compensation. But this was met with strong opposition from both the churches and some political parties, such like Christian Democratic parties, ODS, and Top 09, who argued that this was unconstitutional. The main argument against taxation was that it violated the principle of legal certainty, as the compensation were originally agreed to be tax-free. In 2019, Constitutional Court ruled that taxing this restitution was unconstitutional, retroactive, and a breach to the agreements made between the state and churches. The compensation remained tax-exempt, and this is seen a victory for the churches and their supporters. So finally, let's look on conclusion and future outlook. So one of the most important future outcomes of the restitution process is that by 2030, churches will become financially independent. They will no longer receive financial support from the state, and their activities will be funded through the income generated from restituted properties and other sources like donations. Church restitution have not only restored property, but have also elevated the role of churches in Czech society. These restitution have allowed churches to engage in broader activities such as charitable works, cultural preservation, and spiritual development. Church restitution is a complex and multifaceted issue. It involves addressing historical wrongs, via navigation, modern political and economic realities. As the Czech Republic moves forward, the role of churches in society will continue evolve, shaped in part by the outcomes of this restitution. Small topic, one of religious societies, it's Baptist Union, refused financial compensation. It's about their theological and ethical belief. Baptists traditionally emphasize the importance of spiritual over material wealth, and they believed that accepting state funds could compromise their autonomy and mission. By refusing compensation, the Baptists sent a clear message that their focus was on spiritual matters rather than financial restitution. So, Czechoslovakia break up in 1993, and in Slovakia, restitution began in 1993, but in the Czech Republic began 20 years ago. So thank you for attention.